Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers after a brilliant night of football. And joining us, sports writer and broadcaster Henry Winter and the Athletics football correspondent David Ornstein. A very warm welcome to you both. Let's quickly run through the headlines and the back pages as we await them after a very late night of football. This is the Liverpool's brilliant game against Newcastle, covered in the Mirror Online, reporting on a late error from Kevin Kelleher, which cost the leaders victory in the North East. Speaking of Liverpool, David has a very interesting piece himself in The Athletic today, saying Virgil van Dijk has been offered a new contract as his current deal enters the final few months. Telegraph covers Manchester City's return to form, their victory over Forest covered in detail. Bottom of that page, also news of Julian Lopetegui under pressure at West Ham. So, headline in the Mirror Online, Henry: Newcastle spoil Salah's party, 2 for Mo. Late Liverpool error sees Magpies snatch dramatic draw as Red superstar steals the show in 6-goal thriller at St James's Park. Henry, there's a cliche about November nights in Stoke. How does this rank as a point on a December night in Newcastle?
Well, I was expecting one more goal, so I've just been joined by a very wet cat. Yeah. I mean, I've seen enough of those Newcastle-Liverpool games to expect a 4-3 and a thriller. And it possibly could have been if Andy Madley, the referee, hadn't stopped a 3-on-1 Newcastle United attack. I can't believe that Eddie Howe was particularly too pleased with that. But look, your pictures here, sort of say it all. Anthony Gordon obviously enjoys scoring against Liverpool, ex-Everton. He's been linked with them. He's been on good form. Isak was probably their player of the match, along with Tonali. Mo Salah again sending out another message to Boston, to FSG, of his quality. 2 more goals, even though he didn't win. He just produced another fantastic performance, and slightly echoing David's very good story from earlier, Virgil van Dijk again proving what an important player he is. And there's almost a sort of twin track element to Liverpool's season. This fantastic football that they are playing and doing so well under Arne Slot, but also the contract situation. I mean, I think the gut feeling is that Salah stays, Virgil stays, sort of slightly echoing David's story. But the interesting one is Trent Alexander-Arnold, and if Real Madrid do come in for him next summer, when obviously he's a free agent, and obviously all 3 of them can talk to foreign clubs from January the 1st.
Yeah, absolutely. That story will rumble on. We'll get to that in just a touch with David and get the latest on Van Dijk. A late share strike denies Liverpool in thriller for the ages is the Telegraph story there, though, David. On the match itself, how do you reflect on the quality and its significance for Liverpool, just not to avoid defeat? Was that big tonight?
It was really big, and I was half expecting Stan Collymore to pop up at some point and provide a final twist. But, Eddie Howe hasn't had the easiest of seasons up at St James's Park. There's been a lot of change off the pitch and a bit of inconsistency on it. And they sort of looked like they'd picked up before the international break with 3 wins on the bounce. And then post-international break, they stood to go 3 games without a win. And I would say they actually probably deserved to get the 3 points tonight. There was enough there. And as Henry said, they were denied the chance to sort of round it off in style. Liverpool are absolute quality. They're the favourites for this title. They're top of the Champions League, new format table. They've got Mo Salah, who looks to be getting better with age. And we'll talk about the contract situation shortly. But for Newcastle to, rise up like that and go toe to toe, and Alexander Isak seems to do it when it matters most. It's an amazing goal against a top side. And so Newcastle can sort of take that momentum now into the Brentford game at the weekend and have high hopes of a strong sort of Christmas period second half of the season. The expectations are lofty at St James's Park, led by the Saudi-backed ownership, and they want to be qualifying for Europe. They got into the Champions League and in their first season, and they want to get back towards those echelons, and it hasn't quite been the beginning of the campaign that they would have liked, but that doesn't mean to say they can't go on to have a really strong few months ahead, and they've caused Liverpool to stumble here, and this could prove a really interesting night in the title race.
Liverpool's lead down to 7 points. David, we'll come to Henry in a second, but tell us about the Van Dijk story then in your Athletic. Liverpool have made Virgil van Dijk contract offer in attempt to keep captain at Anfield. How likely is that from your understanding of the situation?
Well, so an offer has gone to him, which hasn't happened so far with Mo Salah. I do expect Salah to receive an offer very soon. Why he hasn't so far and Van Dijk has is something that maybe only Liverpool can explain. Perhaps they're prioritising their captain. Perhaps the gap between what they're prepared to offer Salah and what he wants is such that you don't go to him with a proposal if you fear it may antagonise him. But in the case of Van Dijk, talks have been going on for some time, and within that, an offer has been made, an opening proposal. It's understood that it fell below his expectations, and so far there is no breakthrough on either the value of a potential new deal or the duration, the length of it. That's not to say it won't happen. Talks are continuing, and so we've seen how well he has done, Salah too. But Liverpool, Fenway Sports Group, the ownership, have a big decision to make there. It sort of breaks their policy to go big on a contract for over 30-year-old players. Both of them are. Yet they're playing fantastically well. They've also got to be careful on the precedent it maybe sets for the dressing room and contracts that are to follow. It's a bit of a Mookie Betts scenario, potentially, which they experienced with the Boston Red Sox. There's a different case with Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's 26, Liverpool born and bred. He's top quality. It's very unusual for them to be in this position, and Real Madrid do want him. So the clock is ticking. No agreements yet on any of them. They can sign pre-contract agreements on the 1st of January for the summer. These are tense moments. It's got to be dealt with by Richard Hughes, by Michael Edwards. They inherited this problem from the previous regime. I don't know why it wasn't sorted out earlier, but it doesn't seem to be affecting matters on the pitch. They're all playing well. Trent Alexander-Arnold didn't play tonight, but Arne Slot is doing a fantastic job, and they'll hope that they can get some good news in the not too distant future on at least some of these contracts.
How delicate, Henry, do you think the situation is with Salah and Van Dijk in particular? Salah 15 goals now in 21 games. He's 32. Van Dijk is 33, but seeming pretty imperious. Maybe that moment from Isak apart. How do you see it in terms of what they can afford to give these players at this stage?
I mean, if you were judging the two footballers of the year at this early stage, a third of the way into the Premier League season, you'd say it's pretty much a shootout between Saka and Salah. And the thing about Salah, and the Americans can play as much money ball as they like. How do you replace a player like Mo Salah in terms of who you're going to get? Rodrigo from Real Madrid? Possibly not. You're obviously not going to get Saka. We're talking about right-sided players. They're very, very few of Salah's professionalism, numbers return, and the Americans love a numbers return. You're talking sort of 50 odd million to sort of even to consider getting anywhere close to someone who can replace him. And there are very few individuals out there. So, and this idea of, someone being old at 30 or heading into their 30s, you look at the professionalism of players like Virgil van Dijk and Mo Salah. Mo Salah came back in the summer. He looked in absolutely fantastic condition. He doesn't drink. He's incredibly dedicated. You only see him sort of on the back pages. And I think it's no surprise that, was it the other day, he scored that fantastic goal and ripped his shirt off, took the booking, because that was a fantastic message to say, look what shape I'm in. I mean, that was, quite a collection of abs there. I think we're all very jealous. Well, certainly I am. David's much fitter than me, and so are you, Teddy.
But
take
your
just
shirt
to
off,
see
David.
that, yeah, but I thought that was sending out a message as much as his chat with a few of the Mersey Beat reporters outside St Mary's. So I think he's actually playing it pretty cleverly. He's putting pressure on Liverpool on the board, and also because what this wonderful work that Arne Slot is doing. You don't want the negativity of losing your best player in Mo Salah. You don't want the negativity of losing Virgil van Dijk. I'm sure Virgil van Dijk will stay because A, why leave Liverpool at the moment? And B, if his next step is to go to Saudi, well, he's not going to be playing for the Dutch national team. So I think, and he's too good to retire internationally. So look, I hope from a neutral's perspective, from the Premier League's perspective, and also from Liverpool's perspective, that they stay. Trent Alexander-Arnold is a different situation. Real Madrid are crying out for a right back. You can just see him sort of being there, pinging his passes, and he's young. It's an adventure. It would be fantastic for him. I think he's different from the other two. So if I were a betting man, I would say that Virgil and Mo stay, and Trent will. I mean, it's Real Madrid. You have to look at that sort of offer if they do come calling.
Very tempting, isn't it? Liverpool 7 points clear then at the top. They are 9 points. Yet they are 9 points clear of Manchester City. So City clawing back 2 points tonight. Let's look at a headline in the Telegraph on this one. There, De Bruyne's return serves up instant fix for Guardiola. David, another 33-year-old. How does the plot thicken regarding Kevin De Bruyne in the past 4 or 5 weeks or so after tonight?
Yeah, and there were rumours that there was some sort of rift with Pep Guardiola. He was keen to put them to bed before the match, and judging by the smile on De Bruyne's face when he scored tonight, he's not too discontent there. He's probably just happy to be playing football after the injury problems he's encountered over the last year or more. And he really needs to get some consistency because we know his quality. He's still one of the best players in the world and a vital leader for City. I don't think talks have really started yet on a new contract for him. Equally, if he was to say that he wants to stay on, I'm sure Manchester City would sort out a contract for him. That's one of his 3 options, as I understand it, to extend by a year, to go to the MLS or to go to Saudi Arabia. And that will be a decision that he makes, I'm sure, in 2025 once he's got a clearer picture of how he is fitness-wise and form too. City, that was a massive result, surprisingly. You wouldn't normally say that at this time of the year, but after 7 without a win, they rode their luck. Chris Wood could have equalised, but then they asserted their authority and very interesting selections from Pep Guardiola. Jack Grealish as a number 10, Stefan Ortega retaining the goalkeeper jersey. What does that mean for the future of Ederson? What are they going to do in the January transfer market? People I speak to suggest they will quite possibly look to dip in, and then how will the other clubs react in accordance? It is an ageing squad. It's a squad that's been bruised recently, but let's not forget the quality and nor write them off.
Yeah, first win in 8, 3-0 against Nottingham Forest. Henry, in the Telegraph, James Ducker wrote, Pep Guardiola was clear that Kevin De Bruyne alone would not solve Manchester City's problems, but there is little doubting the difference the Belgian midfielder makes when he is fit and firing. Did you see a big difference from him and Manchester City tonight, Henry, or were there moments still of concern in that game?
Well, there are moments of concern, but I think Jack Grealish, as David says, as a number 10, we saw how well he did that in one of Lee Carsley's first game, I think, out in Dublin. He can play that role really well. And I thought Jeremy Doku had a good game as well. But as you say, Kevin De Bruyne, I mean, the way that he passes the ball is like how some players shoot. I mean, he just absolutely drills that ball in. I mean, he's an assist machine. And it's been frustrating for City and for those of us who sort of admire De Bruyne, admire football, that he's been injured too often. That is the issue for him. I'm sure it makes sense for it to keep him for another year, because some of the younger players, and they still have 1 or 2 good players stepping up from the academy, McAtee and players like that. Obviously, Rico Lewis is more embedded. Phil Foden, who's not had a great season, but he's Footballer of the Year. We know what a special player he is. These young players will look up to Kevin De Bruyne, see his professionalism, see his dedication, see the way that he deals with adversity, injuries, slight dips in form, and be inspired by that. So he's one of those players that City, I'm sure, would be minded to keep.
Yeah, absolutely. And good to see him back for the Premier League for all the neutrals as well. Wonderful goal scored, set up by Jeremy Doku there. Now we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, look at more of the back pages. Plenty on the back pages around the football. We'll talk Chelsea, but also the Sun with this detailed look on Arsenal's win over Manchester United. Goodwill hunting, Saliba and his corner kings close the gap. We'll look at that next. Welcome back. You are watching Back Pages tonight, and welcome back to the sports writer and broadcaster Henry Winter and the Athletics football correspondent David Ornstein. Let's look at two big wins for Arsenal and Chelsea, covered on the back page of the Mail. William Saliba with the big picture, but inset Jadon Sancho congratulated by Cole Palmer on his first goal for Chelsea. Capital gains. London rivals Arsenal and Chelsea close the gap on Liverpool as slots men slip up. But Henry, let's reflect on Chelsea, if we may, first and foremost. Enzo Maresca saying they're not in the title race. What do you think?
He's just playing it down. I mean, I think technically and probably they are ahead of schedule in terms of Maresca coming in. There were all the issues off the pitch. You know, was the dressing room big enough for all the sort of the new players that they've brought in? There were a few issues in the boardroom, and Maresca's come in and he's done, you know, impressively well. There are very few sort of squeaks of more murmurs of discontent of players who are being left out. Obviously, he's juggling the squad very well. I mean, if you look at their starting lineup tonight, probably only 5 of them would actually be considered his first team favourite choices. And, you know, they did well. The goals were spread around. His handling of Nicholas Jackson, who didn't start tonight, I think has been exemplary. I mean, he was playing well towards the end of last season, but he's really kicked on under Maresca. So you're seeing with his man management, with his squad juggling, and with his individual one-on-one coaching, how well Maresca's done. And I think, you know, as you say, with his sort of words in press conferences, echoed by Cole Palmer, who's not the most expansive in interviews, but they're just sort of playing everything down and getting on with their game and leaving the pressure on Arsenal and Liverpool.
Chelsea go to Tottenham, an intriguing game on Sunday, David, off the back of that. 5 different goal scorers, albeit against the bottom club who had Jack Stevens sent off in the 39th minute for pulling Marc Cucurella's hair. But what do you think? Maresca's warned of a domination to come. Could it come early?
Well, they've signed a great deal of talent amid all of the scrutiny of their spending spree. Just look at the squad now, but also some players who are due to come in from South America in particular, the age profile as well, the sort of balance that they have actually built now. And there's still some work to do on that. The depth of the first team as well is another thing that I'm sure they'll address in time. But it looks pretty ominous for their opponents, and with a really good coaching appointment in Maresca and some others behind the scenes too. Bernardo Cueva came from Brentford to be the sort of head of set pieces, or the department that they're going to build out around that, and that's already having an effect. And I do think Chelsea are coming into a period where they're going to be competitive. Okay, maybe a little bit ahead of schedule, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. Leicester winning the Premier League title is far more of a shock than Chelsea challenging this season. If they do, they're up there. They're irrepressible going forward. They still don't look totally assured defensively, but I'm not sure who does at the moment. So naturally, they're sort of saying we're not going to be looking at this league table until April, but we're entitled to. We don't have to toe that party line, and I think they look a force to be reckoned with. But that will be a massive test at Spurs on Sunday. That will tell us a lot more.
I suppose one of the boons for Maresca has been getting the best out of Marc Cucurella as well, Henry. He had his hair pulled tonight by Jack Stevens. Southampton had a very difficult time. How important that this was spotted, because, of course, it wasn't with Christian Romero and Tottenham on Cucurella.
Yeah, it's a good point. And Cucurella, I mean, not only has he got fairly flamboyant hair, the moment he is challenged or even a sort of puff of wind goes near him, he goes down like it's a hurricane. But it's one of those decisions where you can say there was an element of play acting and he milked it. But I mean, it's a sending off, and Southampton and Jack Stevens, you know, can't complain. And if that's what VAR is there for, to pick up things that the officials have missed, then absolutely, that's right. It's a very naive thing to do with Cucurella, because you know how he's going to react. You know he's going to plummet.
Yeah, Chelsea scoring 5 as well. It leaves Southampton on 5 points now, 7 points off 17th. Let's get to Arsenal, David. Back page of the Sun. We had a sneak preview of this. Goodwill hunting Saliba and his corner kings close the gap. Timber and Saliba with the goals. But is Nicolas Jova one of the top 5 most important people at Arsenal, the set-piece coach? How do you see it?
Definitely, it would appear. I just mentioned Bernardo Cueva there at Chelsea. Set-piece coaches overlook that role at your peril, you could say, because they're worth their weight in gold, and it's certainly proving that way at Arsenal right now. I mean, I don't think we've ever really seen a team so potent from set pieces. And if it continues, it's going to be a significant help to them, because they're not creating tons from open play in every match at the moment. They did at West Ham, but not really tonight. And some real momentum building now for Arsenal after a wobble sort of earlier in the season. They had the tumult of the departure of Edu as sporting director, but they're really making moves. And yeah, I mean, that defence, even without Gabriel tonight, Saliba stepped up. People call him a Rolls Royce. He's a massive asset for Arsenal. But across the pitch, look at Declan Rice tonight. He was totemic, and you've got Martin Odegaard, just a touch of absolute class wherever he moves. Bukayo Saka, irrepressible. And so they're looking really strong, Arsenal, but they're going to have to be near faultless for the rest of the season because of what Liverpool have done so far. And of course, Manchester City to come back, Chelsea up there, and maybe even others too. But yeah, first time I think they've ever won 4 matches in a row against Manchester United, and they're sitting in a really good position heading into the festive period.
Indeed, first loss under Ruben Amorim. Telegraph story under Oliver Brown's opinion piece. Arsenal's set-piece mastery overpowers Amorim tactics. This is Jason Burt at the Emirates Stadium for the Telegraph. Henry, what will Ruben Amorim have learnt from this? How to pick up men at corner kicks?
Well, Arsenal were swarming. I mean, you saw how they did it. It's now 22 goals from corners since the start of last season. And Nicolas Javert, as you say, he's an absolute magician. The way he prepares them so well. But it was also the quality of the delivery, particularly from Declan Rice. When he's on the left and he's swinging the ball in right-footed, it caused absolute chaos there. And Onana actually did quite well in the first half, but he was under so much pressure in the second half. So Amorim will absolutely have learned that set pieces count. He will also know that Bruno Fernandes can do a job on opponents. He was very good on Odegaard in the first half, but then Odegaard's quality, just as David was saying, so shone through in the second half. But yeah, look, it's a wake-up call, but I don't think Amorim needs to be told that. He knows he needs a pre-season, probably needs a couple of transfer windows to turn this team around.
OK, well, let's talk about clubs having a difficult time at the moment, David. A lot of conversation on Wednesday of Zoulan Lopetegui, covered in the Mail by Sami Mokbel, exclusive from the chief football reporter. Under fire West Ham boss in player bust-up, they report. How do you see this situation for Lopetegui at West Ham United? Not in the relegation zone, but not going great guns.
Yeah, top journalist there, Sammy, reporting that it was a bust-up with Todibo at half-time of the Arsenal game. So it underlines there are some issues there. He's in trouble. He's under big pressure. And they're reviewing his position. They're discussing it. They're considering all options. So he's fighting to save his job after just 7 months. It's not working, is it? And the hierarchy led by David Sullivan have a big decision to make. They play Wolves on Monday, his former team. West Ham brought him in to play sort of attractive attacking football, but anybody who watched him at Wolves would say that wasn't really his way. There's been a huge amount of recruitment and not much of it has worked out so far, overseen by Tim Steidten, of course. So no final decision yet. Maybe he will live on a bit longer, but this is far from satisfactory and below where that club expects to be, especially after the reign of Moyes, which was, as we look back on it now, extremely successful.
Yep, you've only got about 20 seconds, Henry, to finish off, I'm afraid. But that Wolves-West Ham game on Monday night, could that be decisive for both managers?
Well, I'm amazed that Lopetegui is still there. I mean, it shows the patience of the West Ham board. O'Neill was getting some stick from the Wolves fan tonight. So, yeah, it would be surprising if one of them survives that one.
Difficult nights as well for Gary O'Neill, losing to Everton tonight. Henry and David, thank you very much for your company.